Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful in the studio today with our first actual tutorial on our new series, Making Stencils. If you did not see the first video, it was an introduction showing my resource binder that I've put together of all the stencils that I have been designing, from the very basic ones all the way to my hand-drawn stencils. So I'm going to start with the very simple and kind of take you through the progression of what I've been learning. I'm a beginner. I've mentioned before, I'm not a professional or an expert. I'm just someone who's learning new things and sharing them with you as I go along. So if you haven't been following my channel, I do cover a lot of different topics, so I want to say welcome. If you enjoy this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up and click on subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos. And if you click on the little bell, you'll get a notification when I do post something new. So my plan is to do these first few videos. They're going to hopefully be back to back as soon as I can, record them and edit them and all of that. So you'll probably be getting several close together because I've been maybe making stencils now for a month or two. I don't know. I haven't checked, but it hasn't been for very long. As I keep learning more things, I will share those, so they may become more spread out over time, but I'm going to try to at least get everything that I've learned so far recorded for you. So today, the first thing I want to start with are just the most basic, simple stencils you can do. I'm going to always try to share how you can do a similar thing or the same thing without a cutting machine if I can come up with that idea. So I'm going to try to do those kind of in the same video together, which is going to make the videos very long, but I thought at least it would kind of keep everything together. The question I have for you, and you can let me know down in the comment, is if you watched the last video, I've done gel print samples of all of my stencils next to the stencil as a reminder for me and just as an example so I can remember what they look like printed if I haven't used any in a while. If you would like, this would take a lot more time, I can either do another series after where I'm showing how I do some of the gel prints if you're interested, and that can just be a separate one, or maybe you would like to see how I use them in the same video, which again would make the video very long. But if that's something that you think would be helpful, let me know in the comments and I can start recording them that way. So for this first one, I'm not going to do that, but if you would like to see that, I could maybe do one for this first video and then put it in the next one in the series. So let me know what you think. I kind of am on the fence about it. So today, the first one that I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it super simple and basic. I'm going to show you how you can make something like this, just a simple circle stencil without any kind of cutting machine. You will need a circle punch of some size, but I'm going to show you how you can do that. And then I will also show it on my Cricut. So that's kind of two different things, doing without a machine and then with a machine. You might have a different brand of machine, and I won't know how that works, but at least as I go through, you'll maybe be inspired by certain ideas that you hadn't thought of. Maybe not for the circle, this is pretty basic, but I'm hoping that everyone will get something out of these, whether it's just thinking outside the box or, helping with design inspiration, maybe different ideas, different ways of doing things. There's always many ways to do things. And if you do have a Cricut, if you're new to Cricut, you might find just learning these basic skills helpful to get you started, and then trust me, you'll take off from there. I know it can be really intimidating initially. I think it's that way for everyone, but I have to say that Cricut Design Space is very intuitive and quick and easy to learn. So once you kind of get the feel of it, you're just gonna, like I said, only your creativity is going to hold you back because it's going to be easy to use. So I may or may not go into too much detail on the Cricut overall. There are videos out there, even by Cricut, that can teach you just all the basic, looking at, exploring the whole design space. If you want me to do something like that, I'm happy to go out and do just one standalone video for kind of an overview of the Cricut machine that I have. I'm happy to do that. So let me know again down in the comments if you would like me to do that. Otherwise, today I'm only going to show the things that we need to create these basics stencils. So this first part, in fact, I probably will even break it up into multiple videos, but the first ones that I'm going to work on, which are all of these, And I won't go through each of these. I may do something different, but these are all designs that could be made with just basic shapes. I did them all in Cricut Design Space, but some of them you'll be able to do just on your own without having a Cricut machine. So before I get to the machine part of it, I do want to show just a quick way that you can make a similar kind of stencil with just a circle punch, or even your little hole punches, you know, just your regular ones. This one's super tiny, so it would be a really fine pattern. You can get even just these circular hole punches in different sizes. This one is a little bit bigger, but still smaller than like a binder page size. I also have that size, which is a nice size hole. It's still a little smaller even than this one. So to do that, you can just use a regular piece of paper. I'm just using a piece of scratch paper, even just regular copy paper. You can use magazine pages, junk mail, just anything. It doesn't have to be pretty. You're going to end up getting paint on this anyway, which will make it more sturdy. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this. This one is made with cardstock. I made it in my Cricut machine, not intending to make a stencil. I was actually cutting out just the little hole reinforcements for, you know, binder paper. And I did it out of craft cardstock. But because once I cut it, I thought that would make a great texture stencil. So I've just been using it that way, and it gets, you know, sturdier and sturdier over time because it's getting paint built up on it. So I don't even need this one to be out of plastic. So we're going to create something like that. So to do that, the easiest way is take a piece of paper. I folded this one in half, and then in half again, and then in half again. You don't want to get too thick because it'll be too hard to actually punch with your punch. So folding it this many times and using a 1-inch punch, I was able to have enough pressure to do that. So for me, I just put it in here, and as a guide so that they would be evenly spaced, I just lined it up with the very edge of my punch. And that way I know that's where that mark is. So punch the first one, and then move it over, and again, just line it up with that first punch to the very edge, punch it again, and do that all the way across, and that way they're pretty evenly spaced apart. And then you unfold it, and now I have my lined up dots. Now, of course, these are bigger, but so you're limited to how much pressure you're able to push and what size punches you have. You could do this with squares, heart shapes, any kind of punch shape that you have, a circle punch. So that is just the easiest way to do that. Later on, we'll get on to maybe different ways of doing different kind of shapes. So to do this on a Cricut, and this is going to kind of be the same process of any kind of repeating pattern. It could be a rectangle, a square. I don't know that I have any lined up that way. But these are kind of just any kind of repeating patterns with using one shape. And then we'll move on to more complicated ones later. So let me go over to my computer. The things that you're going to want to have on hand if you are going to use a Cricut machine or another cutting machine is obviously you need your machine. I've been using for the future stencils I've been making, I've been using Samsill's craft plastic sheets, and I will put a link below for that. I purchased this one because it said it worked with Cricut die cutting machines. I did have some issues, which I'll explain later when we get into the Cricut, about it cutting through their machine. So I will, address that. But this is what I'm using. I'll put a link down below. You can also use, again, this is just craft cardstock. So you can practice if you don't want to waste plastic to begin with until you get your design, a little practice making them. You can do them on copy paper. You can do them on cardstock, on scratch, anything, the same as hand cutting them, and just do them on your Cricut until you get the final that you really like, and then you can cut it on plastic or something heavier if you want. So you're gonna need, if you do use a Cricut, you're gonna need your cutting mat. Most materials, the standard grip, which is this green one, will work. Mine has lost a lot of its tackiness because I'll show you, I scrape off the little bits of plastic after with this little Cricut scraper. You don't have to have this. I didn't for a long time, and I was actually using my little bead, because it was a nice flat thing, to scrape my little extra leftover plastic bits off of my mat. When you do that, either one you use, you're getting a little bit of that residue, this tackiness comes off of this mat. And so when that happens, it's not going to stick heavier materials the way that it started out. So I've been actually using, for the Samsill plastic, because it is a heavier plastic, I've been using my strong grip mat, which same thing, I've been, scraping things off so some of the residue comes off. So you do have to replace your mats when you use them a lot. If you don't have this tool or, this little, metal scraper, even anything flat that you can, a plastic ruler or anything like that, that has, that can kind of pop those pieces up. When they're larger pieces, they're easier to take off, but the finer you get small little things, you need some kind of assistance. This makes it easier. Okay, so you have your mat, maybe a tool or not, and then whatever material that you're going to cut. So let's go over to my computer. Okay, so I already have my Cricut Design Space opened, and this is what you see on your home screen. I won't go through a complete tour of Cricut Design Space for those of you who already know how to use it. One thing that I do want to point out that I know you can't see is I'm working on a MacBook Pro, and I have a blue line across the very top of my screen that you can't see that shows me that my Cricut Design Space is open. And then there are tabs: File, Edit, View, and Help. If I click on the File tab, there's a pop-up that comes that says New Windows. And if I click on that new window, I actually get another window of Design Space. I don't know if your computer has that, but if it does, it's very handy if you can have multiple windows open. And I wanted to point this out right off the bat, because if you are cutting a stencil that's taking a lot of time to cut and you want to continue working on another design, you can actually have two windows open and have the cut window in the background and be working on another one without interrupting. So I just found that and wanted to point that out, that if your computer can have two windows, that's kind of handy. So I'm going to close this one out. I don't need that one open, and now I just have the one we started with. So to start, you want to click on New Project, and it thinks I'm already playing around on here, so I'm just going to replace what was there. Now, I'm not going to go through, like I said, the complete tour, but today we're just going to work with the items that we need to use for this project. So it's really just shapes, but I do want to bring to your attention one thing here. If you are new to this, Design Space comes with some free shapes, and those are what we're going to be working with for these first few videos, because not everyone wants to pay for additional things or has not subscribed to the Access subscription. Access subscription is something that Cricut offers, which gives you access to all of these other shapes here that you see. And then in addition, if I search for more, it brought me down to images, and there are thousands of shapes here that I can access. If it has a little green flag, you see that it had a price that's grayed out with a line through it. That means I can get these with my Access subscription. There may be some later on that would pop up that would have a price that's in black without a line through it and no green flag. That means I would have to pay for that, but then it would be uploaded for me. I would be able to use that as much as I want for as many projects as I want. So if you don't have this, if you haven't paid for the subscription, you could get this graphic, but you need to pay 99 cents for it. So if you're not familiar, I just wanted to point that out so that you know what those green flags mean. Okay, so we're just going to go to shapes again, and we're going to use one of the free shapes. So I'm going to grab a circle because that's what we're working with today. And it comes in a 2x2 inch circle. We can change that, but obviously if we change it and unlock it and change it, then it's not going to be a circle anymore. It'll be an oval. So for this video, we're going to keep it a circle. We can change the size. And to do that, we can just grab that corner and I can just shrink it down or make it large, whatever I want size-wise. But you'll see it tells me the dimension, and it's kind of an odd number. I like to work in even numbers when I'm trying to do a layout where I care about spacing in between. There's other ways to do that, and I will show you that. But if you go up here, you can put in 2.5 for an even number, so it's a 2.5 inch circle now, and it keeps it a circle because this lock is still locked. If I want to change it, again, like I said, to an oval, I can unlock it, make it be whatever size. I could still keep it an even size. I could say it's 3 by 2.5. And I just typed those numbers in, and now it made me have an oval, but it's an even number that might be easier for me to work with when I'm trying to lay it out on this graph paper. So that's just one way to do it, using kind of even math. And I like to do that because I like to challenge myself, and it keeps my math skills sharp. Then you can lock it again, and now we have an oval. So I'm going to go back and make it a circle. One of the ways you can do that is I can go back and change it manually, or if you look up here, this little back arrow, this will take me back one step at a time. You see it's moving around because I moved and I did all these different things. And there's my circle again where I started. Okay, if I wanted to go forward another step, maybe I backed up too many steps, I could click this one. It won't let me now because I'm back at the beginning. But there, if I go. Okay, so this is backwards and forwards. Now, selecting your thing, you see again, these are all gray again. And that's because I don't have anything selected on my canvas. I have a circle there, but I don't have it selected. So I can click on it, and you see the box around it, and now it's selected. Now these are all black again. Okay. The other way you can, I unselected it by just clicking off on the canvas. The other way I can unselect it is up here, deselect. So this little dotted line around your little grouping is deselect. See, you saw my square go away. So select all. If you click on this is your only option. If I had multiple things on here and I click this, it's going to select them all. So this is nice, and I use this a lot, and you'll see as we get further into this. But for right now, because we only have one item, I'm just going to click on it here. The other place I can select it is over here under layers. This is where everything I add, you're going to watch this grow. There's going to be all kinds of things. Sometimes it's easier to select from here than it is from here if you have multiple things or groupings and that sort of thing. We'll go into that a little bit more later on. The other way that you can make your selection is to just see my arrows here. It could be here, it could be anywhere, but just press your mouse and then drag it, and you see this gray box. It will select anything that's in that grouping. For example, if I let's give ourselves another circle right now just to show how we do that. If we go here to edit, I can just click on duplicate, and now I have 2 circles. The other faster way to do that is if let me go show you in the menu again. You'll see next to duplicate, it has this little symbol and D. This is my command symbol on my computer. So it's going to be Command D, and I will get a duplicate. So let's get rid of that. And I have something selected. It won't work if you don't have anything selected, but you're going to hit Command D, and now I have a 3rd circle. Okay. Now, if I want to select just these 2, I can click on this one with my mouse, and I can hold Shift and then click on the next one, and now it will select those 2. Okay, and I'm going to click off of my canvas again, and it will deselect those. The other way I can do it again is I can just put my arrow up here, hold down the Shift key again, and I'm going to drag, touching those 2. I don't even have to touch the whole thing. I've just touched part of those 2 circles, and it selected those 2 circles. Now, the other thing I can do is I can, if one was a square and one was a triangle and one was a circle, I would be able to recognize the difference. You see them over here on the right. I can click on, that's the first one, and you'll notice it's at the very bottom. That's because that was the first circle I made. Everything I did after that goes above, as far as the order of my layers. Okay, now if I have these 3, if I want to select all of them, I just go up here and I select all. That's convenient because if I want to attach these together or duplicate them or align them or anything, it's nice to have them all selected. I use this a lot to build my design because I'm going to do it in increments, and you will be able to see this when we get into more complicated ones, but I'm just trying to at this point show you what all these tool keys do. Okay, so I have them all selected. I'm going to move them around a little bit so they're random. I'm going to go ahead and hit select all, and the next thing over is align, and we're going to look at this a little bit. If I want to align left, everything to the left, maybe I'm trying to make a repeating pattern and I'm going to work left to right instead of top to bottom, I could align everything to the left. It left everything where it was horizontally, but it just moved everything over to the farthest left line, the farthest left circle. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select all again, and we're going to go back to align. I can center these horizontally. Okay, so it took the center one and it brought the other two in, and it centered everything horizontally. We're going to undo that. Select all. Let's look at the next one. Align right does the same thing. Undo that. Select all. Align. Align everything to the top. Now you see they're not spaced evenly, but they are all aligned to the highest point of the top one. Let's undo that. This is how you learn all these things, is just go through and play with each one, knowing that you can undo everything. Okay, so this one, let's center vertically. Again, it centered everything, but they're not spaced evenly. And let's just not even undo that. Let's align bottom. They're already aligned to the bottom. And then center everything. When you center everything, it's going to center both directions. So that made all of these are on top of each other, but they're all still there individually. Okay, so that lets you kind of know how, as you're trying to create a design and you're trying to visualize what it's going to look like, you know, maybe your design is intentionally alternating like this, but then maybe you don't like how that looks, so you're going to change your mind and you decide you want them all even to the top. Okay, now let's uneven them again here. Now the other thing you can do, which is super handy and doesn't require math, is say you know that you want 5 circles here. Let's create 2 more and another one. Okay, they're not evenly spaced, and I know that I want them to be, and I want my design to be, these are going to be a little big for this experiment, but let's say we're going to put it, this far one at 15. I'm going to slide it over. It's not going to be exact, but that's actually exact. And I have this one here all the way to the edge. That means my design is 15 inches across, which was not what we're going to use, but this is just for example. What it's going to do when I select all and then I hit align, I can distribute those horizontally, and it just evened out so that there's the same amount of space in between each one. And so that's really handy when you're doing a repetitive design. Okay, so you can do that this direction, you can also do it the other direction. So if I'm working this direction, which sometimes you are, or working both directions, I'm going to get rid of this one just because these are kind of large to work with. Same thing, I'm going to select all, align, distribute vertically, and now it spaced them this way. So this is handy when, I will show you here, I'm going to delete all of this, and I'm going to work with a smaller circle so we can fit more in here. So let's make this a 1-inch circle, and I'm going to duplicate, put it here, and I'm going to now select all. This is when it's handy, and I'm just going to duplicate these 2. Now I can select all. Now I have 4. I'm going to duplicate all 4. This is just a way to get all your shapes up here, even though they're not evenly spaced. They're not grouped together. They're still individually. I did not group them. I was just, because they were selected all together at once, they stayed selected until they weren't, if that makes sense. So now what I want to do is I'm going to select all. I have to 10 inches, which is perfect because I could do this 10 by 8 by 10, but going the other direction. Let's actually do this. I don't want to get confusing. Let me take 2 away. I want my design to be 8 by 10. So I'm going to move this one over so that it is positioned here at 7, so that because it's 1 inch, it goes all the way to 8. So now I know I have 8 inches that I'm working with in my width. I'm going to select all. I'm going to go to a line. I'm going to distribute them horizontally. Okay. Now what I want to do is I am going to attach them. So you see how I have all of them here? If I go down to the bottom, I can click on attach, and then it shows a paper clip. These are all paper clipped together, which means when I select them again, I'm selecting them all together. The nice thing is it will keep them grouped while I want to do things to the whole group, but I can detach them if I want to later, which I will do. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it, put it right under the next one, and again I can then hold my shift key, click on that one. Now I've selected, you see these are all green over here. I've selected everything. They're not connected. I don't want to connect them yet, but I'm going to duplicate those, put them here, and I'm going to specifically have a different spacing just so you can see this. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to duplicate that too. Okay, and I'm going to do it one more time. Now see where my 10, I kind of want to make this 8 by 10. Now see how these are separate? Because I didn't group them. I just had made 2 at a time when I duplicated them. I hope I'm not too confusing here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one down to my 10 inches. And I can do that exact by going up here to position and see it has 0. That means it's all the way to this side. And 8.944, I want that to be 9, at 9, because it's a 1 inch circle. That brought me down to the 10 mark. So now my design is 8 by 10, but it's not spaced evenly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click off on the side to unselect everything. Now I'm going to hit select all, and let me explain this. When I did this one, see they're all attached. When I duplicated it, it made another row. They're all attached. And every row is that way, okay, because I duplicated an attached row. If I was duplicating individual things and they weren't attached, when I go to try to align these, they would just be all a jumbled mess. So in your mind, you want to make sure that I want my horizontal row to be attached in groups, because now I want to evenly distribute the other direction, my 10 inches direction, okay? So I'm going to select all, I'm going to go to align, and I'm going to distribute vertically now. And it made all of those even. So that was super easy to do. I know it might seem complicated because if you haven't used this yet, but you're going to play around with this, and I encourage you to even make mistakes so that you can see what happens. For example, let me go back and I'm going to delete all of this. So I selected, remember how we could just drag? I just drug my mouse across and it chose all of those, and I'm going to delete them. I just clicked on delete. So now I'm back to my original one line. I'm going to detach this, okay? But I still have it selected. So if I hit duplicate, it's going to duplicate that one row. If I hit duplicate again and I just drag, see, I could think that these are grouped together, that they're attached, and they're really not. See, I have no paper clip over here on the right. These are still selected as a group, but there's no paper clip. So I could keep doing this and I wouldn't know that I didn't have them grouped until I did something like this. I clicked off, and now when I go to select, oh, it only selected this one because these weren't really grouped. They were just all selected. So I'm going to continue that line just to show you what'll happen. I have all those selected. I'm going to duplicate them again. We're just doing this as a test. Okay, and let's go back up, put those at the 10 again. Now, when I select all and I try to align them, they're not grouped together. Watch what happens. Let's align horizontally. Do you see what happens? They're all jumbled. It would do the same thing if I tried to align them vertically. Okay, that's because they weren't grouped together in any kind of grouping. So we want to undo that. I'm going to get rid of all these again. And I'm going to go select all, align to the top, align, distribute horizontally, and I'm going to attach those again. So we're going to get back to where we were. And this is faster if I take these two and do those. And we can select all of these. This is just a faster way to duplicate everything. And again, each of these rows is attached to themselves, to the row, because that's how I started my first duplication. I hope this makes sense, okay? So let's get back to putting that at 10, and we're going to again select all, align, distribute vertically. Now you see they're not all lined up to the edge, so I'm going to also do that, align to the left, there. Now I have everything lined up beautifully. Okay, select all, and I'm going to attach these together. Now, what this is going to do when I cut this is, if I were to hit make it now, it's going to cut out all these circles, but I don't have a frame. This white line here is not really a frame around it. So it would make my circles cut out, but there won't be a straight line here. This is really just showing me the border where it's right up to the edge of my circles. So that means the part that's left behind the plastic is going to be this in-between space, which means I don't have really a good edge all the way around. It's going to make it like a weird shaped mask instead of a stencil. So let's go back and I'll show you what you need to do, because see, these are kind of, if you can tell if I unselect, see there's no border around that. It's just my circle. So we're going to create that rectangle around that also will be cut out. Okay, so I'm going to go to shapes again. In shapes, it's hard to see this, but this square and this rectangle have rounded corners. This square has sharp corners. If you want your stencil to have a rounded corner, you can do that. You would select the rectangle or the square and make it the right shape, the right dimensions. I'm going to make mine sharp. So I have created this square that I'm going to turn into a rectangle. So it's the same color right now. So just to make this easier to see, you can change this so that you can visually see what you're doing. And that would be here. This little circle or square is showing what color my material is. So let's just change that to white. I'll show you later, there's advanced ways to change different colors. We don't need them to be any fancy colors. We can pick any one of these colors. It's just for a visual for us, okay? So right now my circles are white, and you see they're going behind that square. I don't see them. So I want to, this is my background, so I want to put it in the back. So I have it selected. I'm going to go to Arrange, and I'm going to send it to the back. And over here, it moved it all the way to the bottom, because again, remember, everything we add goes on top in layers. So now my circles are on top of my background, and I'll be able to see it. So I've moved it to the back. Now I need to change the size. I'm going to go up here to my lock and unlock it, because I'm going to, otherwise it would keep it a square. And I want to make this 8.25. I could make it 8.75 if I wanted, or 8.5, or 10 by 10. I could do whatever I want, but I'm making these to fit in my little plastic sleeves. So those are 8.5 by 11. I want a little bit narrower because they're easier to get in and out, and I'm going to be using this on an 8 by 10 gel plate anyway. So for me, 8.25 works fine. Height wise, I don't even care that as much, but I can do 10.5 if I want, or I can do 11. Let's just do 10.5. And now what I want to do is I want to select the background, and then I'm holding the shift key and I'm going to click on this, and now I have both items selected. I could also have just hit select all, hit align, and then go down here to center. That's the easiest thing to do. So now you see that I'm centered on my background and I have everything selected. So I can either click on attach and it would put everything together, which I need to do. I'm going to show you what happens if I don't do that. Okay, if I click on this and I don't have anything selected and I just click on make it. Okay, so see here I have two things. What it wants to do is, because I don't have my background and my circles attached to each other, it wants to cut my circles and then it wants to cut my background. Because my circles are 8 by 10 and my background is 8 1/4 by 10 1/2, that won't fit on my 12 by 12 mat. It makes it cut in 2 pages. If that makes sense. So if you accidentally see this 1, 2 basic cuts, you forgot to attach your whole thing together. So go back, we're going to select all, and we can either attach them, that'll work. I find kind of a fun thing to do so that it looks like a stencil in my mind and I can really take a look and make sure it's how I want it to look. I click on combine and I go subtract. Now you see how you see that grid behind those? That is visually showing me that this dark background is my stencil, whether it's cardstock, plastic, whatever. That is what my end product is going to be, and all those circles are cut out. So for a visual, for stencil making, I find this to be the easiest thing to be able to kind of verify that everything looks good before I actually cut it out. Okay, so then we will go to make it, and you can see here it's all attached, and I only have one cut, so I'm good to go. Okay, so for this one, I have them all lined up just like kind of my sample was. My circles were a little smaller in the other one, but we could go ahead and do this one and save it and cut it. I have mine set up, and we're going to see if this works today. If I hit continue, I already have my machine plugged in. If you've not used your Cricut before or new to it, you're not going to have, right now I have them on bookmarked. I have all of these different materials that I use often bookmarked. So if I want to cut it out of heavy cardstock, I would click on that. If you're new and you don't have things bookmarked, you're going to go browse all materials and find what material that you want to use. So you can choose, you know, some kind of cardstock, deluxe paper, heavy pattern paper. It's really hard when you're just starting out to know which paper that I have. You know, there's different weights of paper. What if mine is not the same as the one, you know, I don't know how thick their corrugated cardboard is. So you kind of have to do some practice to figure that out. But where you can find some information is to click down here on material settings, and you can, these are now alphabetical instead of by category. So you could find, you know, let's see, cardstock for intricate cuts. Okay, we saw that one up there. For that one, it's telling you the pressure's 182. It's going to do 2 passes, and it uses a fine blade. You can edit these. If it's, say you try this one and it doesn't quite cut through enough, you might just bump up the pressure. That's one way to do it. For some reason, and I may need to do an update or something on my Design Space. See where this cancel button and save button are? And you can kind of see 2 little squares behind there. Those are buttons that do things. So I'm trying to click very carefully. They're really supposed to be a plus and a minus. You see how this number over here is changing? You can either change it using the slider, or these keys should be visible for me. I don't know why they're not. These cancel and save buttons are in my way, because the other thing I should be able to change is how many times it's cutting it. I'll show you again. Let's see. I just changed that now. That was this one. You see here, I should be able to change that, and it was covering that up for me for some reason. So I don't know what's going on with it, but this is making this a little bit difficult, because it should be letting me change to cutting that 3 times if I wanted, or turning it off. So where you see this off that means it's only going to cut one time. For some things, thicker materials, plastic, that kind of thing, which is what we're going to use, you want this to be 2 or 3 times. And what that does is it will, when it's cutting a shape, it'll cut it those 2 or 3 times while it's in the same shape, instead of cutting the whole stencil once and then you take it out of your machine, put it back in, and try to cut it again a second time. It won't line up exactly. So to get perfect ones, you want to use this multi-cut. So when you're looking for your material, try to match up to what you're actually using as best as you can. And if it's not cutting through, one thing you can do, I've created my own material that I use, is the Samsill plastic. So I have those settings, and let's go look at those so I can tell you what they are in case you're going to buy this material. Let me go to Samsill craft plastic. I have it set at 325 for its pressure, cutting it 3 times with a fine point blade. Now, like I said, when you go to edit this, for some reason my keys are in the wrong place. It's not letting me do things, because you can change these. So when you go to create a new material, this is what you would do, because you're not going to have this material in your browse listing if you go to purchase it. And I had to create one because I tried all different things and there wasn't any other plastic that worked. So let's see, I was under edit, so I can't do it there. This is what you would do. You're going to go to browse all materials. You're going to go material settings, and you're going to go to the bottom. Okay, if you go into material settings, go all the way to the bottom and add new material. And then you can give it a name, and that's where I gave it the Samsill craft plastic name. And we're going to do demo, and this is not going to work because something's going on with my thing here. And I would hit save. What it does is it's going to add that demo, and it lets me change things here. So I can change that to 325 like I had it. But again, for some reason, it's not even letting me go as high as I want. It's only letting me go down. Okay, there. I'm going to go up to 325. But for some reason, it's not letting me do the 2 times and all of that. It should let me fill in those other blanks, and it should see it's only showing it as off. So something's not working correctly on my thing. I probably, like I said, need to update my software. But this is how you would do it. You're going to plug it in, do it 3 times, and then hit save, and you'll have your material there. Hopefully yours will work. I don't know what's going on with mine, but we're going to get out of that. Okay, so once you have your material, whether it's one that they listed or you've created a new one, I know that for mine, I still needed to increase my pressure to more, and then that made it perfect. Okay, so then you can't see this, but on my cutter, this is flashing now. I would click that, it would let me load my material and go ahead and do my cut. So I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to take the time. So I'm going to cancel my cut. I'm going to cancel it here, and then we're going to save this. So I'm going to click on save. I have created a collection called Stencils. So click on this and it'll give you the option of creating a file folder just for all your stencils. So I'm going to call this one circles 1 inch. Okay, and I'm going to mark that, and it's going to save that for me. Okay. And now I can go and I can take this one if I want. Well, let's go see where it is here. It's under my stuff, and there's my circles. Now the thing you can do that I also want to show you, and I'll do it with this one. It's going to make this a little longer video, but I want you to learn one more thing so that you can play around with some of these shapes. So we're going to go back into this one, and I'm going to customize it. That way I don't have to start all over. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go back to combine, and I'm going to do undo subtract, and I'm going to get rid of my background. So now I'm back to my circles, and I'm going to go back and detach those again so that I can play around with them. So one thing maybe that you want to do is maybe you want them alternating. You don't want them all lined up straight. So when you're working with basic shapes, you can create totally different stencils just by doing this, by changing how they're arranged. The one trick to doing this, and I'm going to end up deleting all these so that you can see here. I know they're not all even, But see how now I need more rows of circles to fill up my 10? So I can, do that, duplicate, do a couple more so that I'm to my 10 inches. I'm going to go ahead and go back and get that bottom one to my 10 inches by putting it here at 9. And the top one's at the top. I'm going to select all. And I'm going to align them, distribute them vertically. So it evened them out this way, but you can see they're not the way I want them horizontally. They're not even at all. So the easiest way, I think, to do that would be to get rid of all of these. And I know that seems like, oh, you just did all that work, but this is for demonstration purposes. Actually, I don't want all of them. I want this group. Okay, I need these two because I want to get these arranged how I want before I copy the rest of the sheet. So, when I was working with doing them all aligned, all I needed to do was get one row how I liked it, group together, and then bring it down the rest of them, align them, and I was done. When you're working with an alternating design, which it's a repeating pattern still, but my design is sort of alternate, it's offset, I need to do that first, and then I want to do something with this empty space over here, because otherwise I end up with these random empty spaces on the edges. So I want to have these centered. So the easier way, I think, to do this is I'm going to get rid of this one too. I'm going to detach these, and I'm going to space these so that I know how much space is in between. It's not some odd number, okay? So let's say I decide I'm going to have them be 1/4 of an inch apart. For some reason that circle is not a circle anymore. Let me start all over. Go back and grab a circle again, and I want it to be a 1-inch circle up here in the corner. So it's a 1-inch circle, and my position is 0, 0. I've got it up in the corner. So I'm going to duplicate, Command D, and I'm going to get another circle, and I'm going to move it over so that they're a 1/4 inch apart. Now, eyeballing it, it kind of looks like they're a 1/4 inch apart, but if I look over here to position, it's not. It's a little bit more than that. So 1/4 is 1.25. So it means this one's at 0, this one is at 1.25 to begin, right? And it ends over here at 2.25 because it's a 1-inch circle. So what I can do is, again, I can take these two, I can duplicate them, I can move this group, and I want them a 1/4 inch apart, so that puts it at 2.5. I go over to position, it's not at 2.5. I'm going to duplicate that again, move it up, I want it at 5, it's not quite at 5, I'm going to put it at 5. To me, this was the easiest way to do my alternating. Otherwise, it's really, you're just eyeballing it. Okay, and then I'm going to do one more circle. I'm going to put it up here at 7.5. And now I have, my design is 8.5 inches wide, which is fine. We're going to fix that at the end, okay? What I want to do now is I'm going to take, before I attach those, I'm going to select these, and I'm going to duplicate those. And I'm going to move them under here. And I know now that I need those to be at, because my space in between is a 1/4 of an inch, half of that is 0.125. Okay, this is where it's good to learn your math. 0.125. So I want to have it at half. My circle would be 0.5, half of a circle, and then 0.125 added to that will get me to where I need to be to get these all centered. I'm hoping that makes sense. So you'll see it visually here. I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna put this at 0.625, And then over here I want to be at 1.125. That means my spacing in between horizontally and vertically now is the same. So I know it's math and not everyone likes to do that, but to me that is because I'm kind of type A that way. I know that those are even. The other thing that I like to do then is I want to take a circle, a 1-inch circle. Let me just grab a duplicate of this one. And I want to fill in these spaces on the sides because I don't like how that looks. And so I'm going to take this circle and cut it in half. Now, because we're doing a circle, they do have a half circle, but for any other design later on that we do that we want to cut in half, we're going to need to do it manually. So I have my circle here. I want to put it into a position that I'm going to be able to cut it in half and see what I'm doing in case it was another kind of shape. So again, I'm going to position it at 7.5. I don't care where it is the other direction, you'll see why, but I want it this way. I want to know that I have a line I can look at. So I'm going to take a square, and I'm going to put that square on top of my circle, and I'm going to position it at 8 because it's a 1/2 inch circle, so I'm 1/2 inch over. Okay, now I'm going to take this and click on that, those two items. I'm going to go down here to combine, and I'm going to hit subtract. Now I have 1/2 of a circle. Where this is handy, you'll be able to do this with any shape when you're trying to offset your design instead of having it all lined up and down. This is handy because now I have a 1/2 of a design and I can plop it there. Now the other thing that I want to do again is I want to make sure it's lined up. So I need it at 8.125, which is where it is, and I need it at 1.125 so that it's lined up. The other way I could do this if I did want to do that math is I can select this and this row and then align them, do this align and align them top or bottom. The thing you have to do, remember when you're doing that, is it's going to go, if you're aligning to the top, it's going to go to the top of the highest thing. So if this were higher than these, it's going to move everything up, and now I'm not the right distance here. I know this is getting into the weeds and very detailed, but if I don't tell you this now and you're playing around, you're not maybe going to understand that it's not you doing something wrong, you just didn't know. You know, it's very specific about where it moves things when you're using this align. So you can always kind of double check yourself by looking over here at these positions. Okay, so I have this now because it's offset. My 1/2 circle is actually overhanging this a little bit. It's not all lined up to the edge. That may or may not matter to you. We're going to put an edge around this anyway, but if you're persnickety about it, you can shave that off. So I would take another square. I would go up here to my 8.5. Again, I don't care up and down where I am. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select, combine, and subtract. It shaved that bit off, so now I'm lined up with my edge perfectly. Everything is still lined up, so I like that maybe better. Okay, so then I'm gonna take this one, I'm gonna duplicate it. Now I need it to go over here, but it's the wrong direction, so I'm gonna go up here to flip. I'm gonna flip horizontally, and then I'm gonna move it up to that position. Now I'm gonna leave it right here so that you can see what, if I go over here to position, I know that I want to be at 0 and then tab over, and I want to be at 1.125, and it put it right where I needed it to be without me dragging it. Okay, now what I can do is I'm going to select all. I'm going to attach those together so they're grouped together. See, I have a little paper clip over here that says everything below it is attached. And I'm going to duplicate, Command D. So this is the easiest way. You spend a little time getting this design how you want it, but once you've done that, now you just go back and duplicate all the way down again. Now this one, I know, do my math, I want it at 2.25. I'm going to hit Command D again, and this one I'm going to go at 4.5, Command D, go up here to 6.75, And now I'm to the end. It's going to go over my 10. I could go ahead and do this, or I could have just detached that and then only copied that top line. It works either way. So this one I want to be at 9, 9. And see if I want this to be, now it's 8.5 by 11. I could leave it like this and shrink the whole thing to the size I want, but I'm looking at it visually, and if I want it to be even, I can do a couple things. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to unattach this, the bottom one, and then I'm going to just get rid of this last row. So I'm selecting it, delete. Okay, so now I have an even design. Now, if I'm looking at this, I may say, I have all these half circles. I'd kind of like these to be half circles, you know, do something on the other way also. But I don't mind how that looks. You could do it and not have those, and then these all just kind of wobble down the side. So that is kind of one way to make these offset staggered things. But I really wanted to show you how to do this half deal, because that's going to come in handy for lots and lots of designs later on. So again, you would do the same thing where we select all of this. We're going to attach it together, and then we're going to create our background. So what I would do with this is I have my 8.5 by 10, but if I wanted it to be a different size, I can resize it now, you know, make a smaller one, bigger one. I can unlock this and I can change it to 8 by 10, which made my circles a little bit not circular, but you might not care. You might kind of like it that it's that not an exact circle, you know. So you kind of just play around with size. For a lot of my designs, I don't mind, once I get to this point, when I want to make it an 8 by 10, it doesn't distort it, you know, if it's a different shape, an interesting shape, it doesn't distort it enough that I don't like it anymore. So you kind of just play around till you get it a size you like that's within the parameters, and then you create your background. So let's just leave this like it is. It's circles, it's all attached, and I go back and I create my background again. And I'm not even gonna this time, because I don't need to, last time it was for instruction, change the color, because you're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna go ahead and just arrange that to the back, and I'm gonna unlock it. I'm gonna make it 8.25 by 10.5. That's the size I want my stencil. I'm gonna select all, align to the center. It's all the same color, but that's okay because I have it all selected. I'm going to go combine, subtract, and it's going to do the same thing it did last time. So you don't have to change the color unless you need to visually. I know for the first couple of weeks probably that I was doing this, I was changing the colors because I had a hard time wrapping my head around negative space and positive space, meaning this stencil that's left behind and what's getting cut out. When you get into doing masks more, which we'll do later on, that really becomes an issue because your brain is just trying to see, you know, what's going to be cut out and what's going to be left behind. So we're together now. We have this combined because when we did a subtract, we were combining the two, and now we could go ahead and make this also. Okay, so I had accidentally saved this while I was working on it, so I think I accidentally got rid of my first circles, so we're going to call this circles 1 inch offset and save. Okay, so that's very basic. I know it probably seemed like a lot, but you have today learned some basic skills to at least maneuver you around Design Space if you haven't tried this at all yet. How to subtract things, shapes when you need to, because we're going to get into that more in the next video. But at least now you can play around with just kind of learning how to maneuver, how to attach things and detach things. You know, you're not going to do anything that's going to make a huge mistake because you can always use the back arrow. You can also always go back to wherever you were and undo what you did. So you can undo the subtract and it'd make those two pieces again. So I suggest you go play around with some of these other shapes, doing just what we did, arranging them in different ways, because taking these and arranging them will create completely new different looks, even with just the circles. So I can't wait to get to the next video. I hope you play around with this a little bit and make something, and let me know in the comments if you want to do a gel plate tutorial of some things we can do with circles, and we'll do that later on. So I'm going to get this one edited and up, and see you soon with the next video. Have a great day and go make something. Bye.